Hello chicos, today we're going to do lesson 7, multiplying and dividing decimal numbers. Super easy. And remember that when we multiply, we do not have to align the decimals, okay? The decimals are until the end. So we're going to multiply. 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times 4 is 8. Then we're going to use a little square so that we don't get confused. And then we move to the next one. With the tens, we're going to be multiplying. So 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times 4 is 12. And again, since we're moving now to multiply with the hundreds, we put 2 spaces and multiply. 6 times 2 is 12, 6 times 1 is 6 plus 1, 7, and 6 times 4, 24. Now we're going to add, and we get 4, 8, 13, plus 1, that would be 10, plus 1, that would be 6, and 2. Now remember that the decimals, what we're going to do is we're going to count how many decimals we have here. In this one we have 2 decimals, and in this one we have only 1. So we need 3 decimals in our answer. So I move the decimal from here, 1, 2, 3. So my answer is going to be 260 and 384 thousandths. All right, let's look at this one. In this one, we have to do the same. We're going to multiply, ignoring the decimals. 7 times 8 is 56. 7 times 7, 49, plus 5, 54. And 7 times 6 is 42, plus 5, 47. And now we put a square to move and multiply now by the tens, the 3. So 3 times 8 is 24. We have a 2 now. 3 times 7 is 21, and 2, 23. And then 3 times 6, 18, and 2, 20. And again, we put another square. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 7 is 35, and 4 is 39. And 5 times 6 is 30, and 3, 33. Notice we don't have to do anything with the zeros. It's not necessary because we're just going to get more zeros. So we just add 6, 8, 10. That's 14. That's 6 and 3. And again, just like we said in the previous exercise, we're going to see how many decimals we have here and how many we have here. Notice that in this second one we have 4 decimals, so we have a total of 6 decimals. So we're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And our decimal point will be here, so we need to add a 0 for our final answer. So our answer will be 364,086 millions. All right, in the next page, what we're going to do is review how to divide with decimals. Now remember that this is the dividend and this is the divisor. And the divisor is the one that cannot have decimals. Since we have 2 decimals in this case, we have to multiply times 100 so that this decimal moves here. But if we multiply in there, we also have to multiply here so that we keep the balance. And so in this case, it's going to be 8.4 inside and 35 outside. Okay, so 35 is dividing 8.4. Remember, we start by grabbing the first one. We can't do it, so we put a 0. And then the decimal appears, so we put it in our answer. Now we have to do 84 divided by 35, which is 2, because 2 times 35 is 70. We subtract, and that's 14. If we bring a 0 down to find another decimal, that's going to be 4, because 4 times 35 is 140. And that's it. That would be our answer. 24 hundredths. And the next one is exactly the same. The divisor has a decimal. We can't do that. So we're going to multiply times 10 so that we move it 1 space. But we also have to multiply the 21 times 10. So we're going to end up with 210 divided by 5. Again, we start with the 2. 2 can be divided into 5. But we don't need to put a 0 in this case because we're not with the decimal yet. So what we're just going to do is grab the 21. 21 divided by 5 is 4 because 4 times 5 is 20. And we subtract. When we subtract, we get a 1, and we bring down the 0. And 10 divided by 5 is 2. And that would be our answer, 42. In example 7.5, we have to divide 31 divided by 8. Now notice there's no decimals, so we're just going to put there our exercise. Again, we can't do 3, so we start with 31. 8 times 4 would be 32, so that's too much. So we'll do 8 times 3. 8 times 3 is 24, and when we subtract, that's going to be 7. Now notice that we could just put here 3 remainder 7, but since we are working with decimals, let's just find more decimals. So since the decimal is here, now we put it in our answer, and then we bring down a 0. 70 divided by 8 is 8, because 8 times 8 is 64, and 70 minus 64 is 6. We bring down another 0, and that's going to be 7, because 7 times 8 is 56, which is 4. And we bring down another 0, which in this case is 5. And that would be 40, because 8 times 5 is 40, and that's our answer. Then we have 7.6. We had to divide that. And again, notice that we have in both of them, we have decimals, but the one that causes trouble is the divisor having decimals. So in this case, since we have 3 decimals, we have to multiply times 1,000. And the same number we multiplied the divisor, we also have to multiply the dividend. So it's going to be, if I multiply here times 1,000, it's going to be 4 and 415 thousandths divided by 32. And again, notice how the 4, we can divide 4 into 32. So it's 0. The decimal appears, so I'll put it in my answer. And now it's 44. 44 divided by 32 is possible, which is 1. And I subtract, and that's going to be 12. Now I bring the 1 down, and I divide that, 121 divided by 32. It's close to 4, but 4 is a little bit too much. 4 would be 128. So we'll have to do 3. 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times 3 is 9. When I subtract that, I have to borrow from here, and it's 11 minus 6, 5, and 11 minus 9, 2. And finally, we bring down the 5, and in this case, it will be again close to 8, because 3 times 8 is 24, but it's 256, so it's a little bit too big, so we'll have to do 7. 7 times 2 is 14, and 7 times 3 is 21, plus 1 is 22. So we subtract, and we get 31. Notice how close we were to 32. Now we could bring another 0, but it's not necessary, because we usually round our answers to 2 decimals. And so this one, we can round to 0.14 or 14 hundredths. Remember, we used what we learned before about rounding, which we want the 3 rounded because it's the second decimal. So I look to the 7, and since the 7 is 5 or bigger than 5, we add 1 to the 3, so it's 0.14. The last part of this lesson is estimation. Very, very easy. Remember that estimation is doing the same operations, but with numbers that are rounded. So we're not going to work with all the decimals or all the specific numbers. We're going to round and get an idea, an approximate of the answer. So for example, in this case, we want to round 6.78. We rounded to the ones. So that would be 7. Why 7? Because I look to this one and the one next to it to the right. And since it's 5 or bigger than 5, we add 1 to 6. And then we're going to multiply times this one. Now notice that I can't round to the decimal here because that would be 0. And 7 times 0 is not close to or a good estimate for this multiplication. So what we're going to do is we're going to round it to the 5. So in this case is 5 hundredths. When I multiply, I can do this in my mind, and that's the whole point of estimation, that it would be a much easier multiplication or operation. So in this case, I do 7 times 5 is 35, and since it has 2 decimals, I want 2 decimals in my answer, and that's it. Again, that's the estimation. That is just an approximation of the answer, but it's okay. That's what we want, just something that we can do in our mind easily. Let's work with this other one. In that one, we are going to round to 45. Okay, so we have the 4, we look at the 6, and we round to 45. And then we also round this one. Now in this case, we can round to 2. So I will multiply 45 times 2, which is 90. Now notice that we could also round, in this exercise, we could also round to the tenths. So we could do 40 times 2, which it's not as close. So it's a more vague estimation, a more vague approximation, but it still works. And finally, we have 5.22 times 64 thousandths, and we want to do the same. We want to estimate, so we're going to round each one of these. The first one, we're going to round to 5, and the other one, we're going to round to 6 hundredths. When I multiply, 5 times 6 is 30, and since I have 2 decimals, I want 2 decimals in my answer. So that is our answer. All right, and now you guys do your practice. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments, and I'd love to help you.